like, for example, XRP, for example, if they just say, oh, okay, like
arrogance, pure arrogance.
Yeah, if it's a centralized like crap coin, I don't know if we can curse on it. If it's
We
centralized
can Bitcoin.
Yeah, if it's a centralized shit coin.
What's up, world, and welcome to the Super Investor Show, where we reveal the true identity behind a super investor. And on today's show, we have someone who speaks my language, because we have someone from the UK, but also another big voice in the space of the XRP community, Crypto Insights UK. And it's rare to find two things: a young man in the space who is ahead of their time, and I can see him grinning backstage and making his ego bigger. And number two, a UK voice. And when I say UK voice, I mean in the written format as well. We feel that crypto, maybe it does feel like that in the media, that it revolves around the US. But safe to say, we are doing some incredible things over here in the UK, but he's not in the UK right now. So let me bring Crypto Insights UK up on stage now. And most importantly, where are you in the world right now?
Hi, Jordan. Thank you for having me. I am in Bali right now. So right now, I think it's around 8 p.m. In the evening. I have been on a trip actually for the last 2 days, so I'm feeling very relaxed coming back straight into this conversation with you. I've been excited to talk to you since we spoke first about a year ago, I think.
You're not wrong. Like I said to you off air, it's about time I repaid the favor, interviewing the interviewer. But the first question that I always ask is, how would you define yourself?
Cool. That is a tough question, I think, to be leading off with. In terms of a person, I define myself as somebody who tries to improve on themselves every day. I think that's a way that I'd probably like to define myself as a personality trait. But in terms of an investor, I'm probably like a huge risk taker if you looked at it on paper, because I'm massively stacked towards a specific asset that you've already mentioned in your cool interview. But I don't think I'm that much of a risk taker because of the amount of hours I put in. So if someone was going to ask me, oh, how do you define yourself as an investor? I would probably say the most hedged risk taker in the world, if that would make sense.
And I certainly will allow you to create that term and label.
The most hedged risk taker in the world.
It's fun. We can start it. It has to start somewhere. But I do know what you mean, because ultimately risk is subjective. And maybe there's some people arguing that it isn't subjective, but I'll argue the case, which is it's down to your current circumstance, right? If you have no kids, if you have no wife, no one depending on you, can you take more risk? Well, subjectively, without knowing that person, I'd say, yeah, you could. Yeah. And so that new term, the most hedged risk taker, I think it applies to most people.
I actually dove into that a little bit so I have a weekly newsletter, which we talked about a little bit, but I actually dove into that a little bit in this week's newsletter. I try not to give my opinion too much, and I just try to surmise macro news, crypto, etc. But this week I wrote about a page and a half about that exact thing. So maybe that's why it was on the tip of my tongue, is because I have the opportunity, being young and the amount of time that I put into what I do, that I've learned enough knowledge that even if I go to zero in my portfolio now, I know that I can build it back up again. So if I see an opportunity that could potentially give me a 50, 100 to 1 risk reward ratio over my lifetime, I've got to take that with as much capital as I possibly can. Obviously, I still need to live. So that's something that's important. And this is something that I stressed actually massively in the newsletter, is it isn't relative to everyone. So when you get a lot of people, I'm sure you get the same. Oh, should I invest this into this? How much should I invest into this? It's all completely personal, in my opinion, because I don't know your situation, as you said before. If you've got dependents, if you've got a girlfriend, like kids, anything that like are relying on you, then your risk tolerance is not going to be the same as mine, and your ability to be able to take that risk. The same if your portfolio is a certain size, or the stage of life that you're in. Like I have some people that I work with who are in later stages of life, and they're not looking to make 10, 20, 100x in their portfolio, just looking to protect their wealth. And so all these things are like part of the equation as to why a lot of content creators can't answer the question for you when you go to them, oh, what should I do with this? Is this a good amount of money? It's a really difficult question to answer, because as you were saying, it's like it's subjective. It depends on who you are, where you're living, what your knowledge is of financial markets, and your ability to rebuild if it goes to zero, and your opportunity to rebuild if it goes to zero, if you want to really go out like a long way on that risk spectrum.
There certainly is a lot of factors, and two main things I picked up was, one, you said girlfriends, relationship advice, just have one girlfriend. Advise having more than one. I mean, kudos to you, and maybe you should be coming on the show if you do, so I can find out how you do it. But we're not recommending, are we? And secondly, your newsletter. I know where to get involved with your newsletter, but how can someone at home who already within 5 minutes of listening to you get involved with your newsletter?
It's CryptoinsightUK on Patreon. If you find any of my social medias, my handle is @CryptoinsightUK, and I'll have a beacons link like in my bio of whatever platform that is. So you can go and check it out there. And yeah, as I just will quickly touch on that, is we cover macro, as in macroeconomics, crypto on like an intermediate, like a short and intermediate time frame, as well as beginner to intermediate to advanced, probably knowledge in there. And then we also cover a few trades of the week that we're specifically looking at, and break down the TA, the short, medium, and long term of those that TA as well within that newsletter.
Beautiful.
And it's
Beautiful.
weekly. Yeah.
Which speaks volumes to your output to get that out weekly. So well done.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I can only imagine. With that being said, we'll definitely remind people towards the end, because I don't want that to go miss, because that's going to be a super resource to anyone. But for now, I want to pick your brain, as you may or may not know, on two questions. And the first one, always start with your strength. What is your superpower as a super investor?
Okay, well, I think, as I said before, because I didn't give you the answer, but as I said before, mine's going to be a bit of a strange answer, and you'll find out when you ask the second question as well. But my superpower is obsession. I am not necessarily going to be the smartest person in the room, but I'm somebody who, when they really get their teeth into something, and when they see an opportunity, I like live, eat, and breathe that opportunity as an investor. And the reason I've been able to get myself in like a short amount of time, I was around in the crypto bull run of like 2016, 2017, but only on like a small scale. I went full time in crypto about the late 2020. And the reason I've been able to get to where I am in that time with the knowledge that I've gained is because I spent all my time like looking into crypto. And when I say like all my time, and this is why I say obsession, I wake up, I'll give you a bit of an idea about like my morning routine, or my routine in general. Like I'll wake up, check socials, which I think a lot of people do, looking at what specifically has happened, or if anything's happening towards me personally, if I need to react to anyone, or those sorts of things. Obviously my time frames are a bit different. And then even when I like go in the shower in the morning, I have like a podcast on, and then I eat breakfast, and I'm checking socials. I can't give it a rest. Like I go to the gym, and I have podcasts in my ears when I'm driving somewhere. I have a crypto podcast on, or a financial podcast, and obviously in group chat, so interacting with content creators all the time. And I literally live, eat, and breathe crypto. So when people say, oh, like, how do you know about that? How do you know about this? I genuinely have done 16 hours a day for probably 3 years on crypto. Like, and then before that was just had my toe in the water. And then, yeah, since I've been doing it full time. And it seems like a lot and it seems super intense, and it is tiring. And actually, the last few days that I've been in Bali is one of the things I'm actually trying to do with life is to take a bit of a step back away from that. A few hours of break a day. It is worth it because I really not even for anything more than that. I just enjoy the space. I love learning, and one of the things that I really find about crypto specifically is because the space has grown so fast, you can never learn it all. So it's always a new page to turn over, and that. So I think that's probably my superpower is just maybe not is desire and obsession, maybe crossed into one thing.
You're probably speaking to a lot of people right now and reassuring them that they're not crazy. Their friends and their families, those closest to them who see what they do day to day, which probably people feeling creeped out because you probably described their day. Now they realize, hold on a moment. If I want X result, I have to look at how much time am I putting in, the sweat equity. I like to term it as sweat equity. One thing I want to pick your brain on, I've heard a group of people say, first thing in the morning, don't touch your phone. Don't look at social media. You're being reactive. But what you've said there, and I know you as well, like you said, through a crypto connection, that you are a positive and optimistic guy. You check social media, by the sounds of things, first thing in the morning, and by the sounds of things, before you go to bed. How do you find that impacts your day to day?
It definitely does have does play a role in like how I feel. Or maybe it definitely did, but now over time, like I find that it helps because with the schedule of my day, I know that in the morning, with a lot of the content that I create, it's reactionary to the news. So if I've got some ideas of what I'm going to talk about anyway, and then, okay, first thing I check in the morning, okay, maybe that's changed from what I was going to talk about last night, or there's something there that I can start thinking about, oh, well, I need to make a video on that. This person I've been talking to, they were really interested in this project, or this is happening, and then, oh, I've got some more information about that. I can feed that into that person, and it makes my day kind of flow. But it emotionally, if there's something big happening, it does take away from other like aspects from my brain, like might go or creativity. But I think we'll get into this in a minute. But yeah, I think that it's worth the trade-off just because of the routine that I've got at the minute. Yeah.
I think that is such a beautiful perspective because as much as we would, as content creators, like to say we come on there and we don't consume, that we just produce, and that regardless of whether we see a hateful message, a positive message, good news relating to our favorite project or bad news relating to our favorite project, to say that to be a good investor, and I believe that you are one of them, is to be unemotional. It's impossible. And then I've spoken to enough people now where they've been through decades of investing in different asset classes, and they all say that their emotions do play a role. Have you found that you've had to limit what you do or how long you are on social media so you can get in and get out with what you need?
Not on like a strictly timetabled level. I know that, well, the more that you spend time day to day in terms of what you need can positively and negatively affect your work. Because one thing that I do find is if I spend too much time on social media, like I forget what I've even talked about in my content or what content I've created. So like if I stay so up to date that like every single time I see the news, I'm like, okay, cool, I already knew that was happening. This is the next thing. It's like an addition to what I saw yesterday or what I saw an hour ago, 2 hours ago. Then I'm not even sure what content I've created in terms of like in a chronological order. Have I talked about that? Because I'm in group chats, as I'm sure a lot of people are. You chatting to people all the time. Have I talked about that on social media? Did I talk about that on Twitter? Did I put that on my TikTok? Did I put that on my YouTube? Did I put that in my Discord server? Did I put it in my private chat? Did I put it to a private client? Like all these sorts of things. And it's like, if I'm too much on social media, then I do that. But then if I I have a few hours where I'm not on a specific social media, like let's say Twitter, and then I'm doing content or writing something or creating some content, and then I come back to it for like maybe like little bursts, and then I see some extra news, then that's when I can kind of really separate that from other, like from just the almost brainwave of constant social media, and that actually helps me a lot more. So I do know that I need to not just be on it all the time. I have to, even if it means like going from like YouTube to Twitter to creating some content to even going for a walk and having a podcast in there, the ways that I kind of, instead of limiting my exposure, I change my social media platform, because I think that's the best way to keep my information flowing. But in terms of does it help or not help with creativity, it's a difficult question. Just because I like to be bombarded with information and then try and filter through what I think is the most relevant, and also the most relevant for my community, but also if I've got like personal things that I need to do, or like as in business, then that's the most important for those as well. So I can like filter where I spend that attention rather than not having it on social media. I feel like in our world of work, if you're not really connected within social media all the time, you probably miss out on a lot of important pieces of information.
I didn't expect you to say that last piece, but I'm so glad you did, because I've said it probably in personal private conversations that I believe, excuse my pup in the background, that I believe that social media for crypto is an unnecessary evil. And what I mean by that is that what we need to do on there is filter through the noise, get the information we need to apply it to making us more money, right? Because that's ultimately what we're doing on socials. Hopefully, most of us are. But there is that noise aspect to it. And I like how you said you actually just switch from platform to platform to give your mind and probably your mental capacity that time and peace to absorb new information. That potentially the final thing I'm going to talk on this, because I think this will speak a lot to content creators. You mentioned community and how for certain content creators that's essential. I found that checking in once a week, and I pride myself on this, and replying to every comment and simply blocking any nonsense that's left underneath, is the best way for me to let people know that I value them, to learn from other people, and also say thank you. How, if at all, do you engage with people commenting on your content as you put so much out there?
Yeah, that is a really difficult question to answer, and a formula that I haven't cracked completely. To be absolutely frank, I am not I am a social media content creator, but I'm not a born and bred social media content creator. You can tell that from any of the content that I put out in terms of videos, my like editing skills and things like about around that sort of side of it. I'm just learning on the job, and never had that. I never had the deep desire to make content. I just wanted to help people learn. And I think that as I've grown into a content creator and have more and more people wanting to interact with the knowledge that I put out there, it is something that I definitely am not efficient enough on and don't have enough of a structure, because I do notice a lot of people, specifically when people recur, like, and they come and they comment on many of my videos, like I also get to know them as a person. Like, even if I don't reply to like every single one of their messages, I'm like, oh, that person's like added this bit of information into that, and so they actually understand this link to this link to this link, whereas before I obviously only knew them from this. And then I'm like, okay, cool, like I appreciate you even interacting with me, adding some extra knowledge that I didn't know, linking this together for me, or even just showing me support. Like, I have a few people obviously on YouTube that like every single one of my videos without a doubt say thank you for the content, and I don't think I show them appreciation enough, and it's something that I should work on. If I obviously notice it, then I do show appreciation. But I also, two of my friends like IRL now have like logins to some of my socials.
Just quickly, just because I know language can be one of the biggest barriers.
Sorry.
And IRL actually caught me off literally last week. I was like, URL? No, he said IRL, right? What does that mean? What does IRL mean?
It just means in real life. So they're my IRL means in real life friend. And two of them have access to my social media currently. One helps me with Twitter, who helps me do some aspects of the newsletter formatting. He helps me with some TA as well because he's got a degree in business. And the other one, he's helping me with social media, the analytics side of it. So they have logins to my social media. So obviously I miss notifications from time to time as well. And they sometimes react for me, which is really nice. But again, we interact with each other. So we just try. I try and answer as many replies as I can, but it's almost impossible. But with recurring replies and people who interact a lot, I don't have a scheduled, oh, I'm going to reply at this time on this time. I in the mornings is actually a time when I do reply to that, and in the evenings as well. And I'm more on apps that I'm more active on day to day. So for YouTube, I've got a smaller audience. So if people reply to me on YouTube, I reply. On TikTok, not so much anymore. Because there's a lot of bots and stuff like that on there, and my following's obviously my biggest following by far actually on TikTok. I just literally,
by the way, what's that following now?
On TikTok it's like 80 something, like 82,000, somewhere around there. Thank you. And it hasn't grown for a long time because I'm one of those people that like I'm just neglecting TikTok at the minute. I don't really know why. I really enjoy Twitter, and that's what I was going to say is I'm way more active on Twitter. So people comment on my stuff, I try and reply to that because it's a lot easier for me to actually interact with people on there. I feel like on Twitter, I open it and I'm almost like mesmerized by notifications. And so I'll miss like loads of comments, especially if it's a comment on a video that might be from a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I'm definitely missing that comment. If it's one I've just uploaded, if it's in the first few comments, cool, I'll probably see it and then I'll be able to reply. But with Twitter, I am actively on Twitter for news reasons as well, a lot more. So I do try and react more to Twitter comments.
It's lovely hearing your process and hearing that it's not refined and probably never will be, right? We'll never get to a point to build out a scalable model where you can reply to, and we're talking, what does the end goal look like? Okay, 1,000 comments per post. What does that look like? Now it can't be you. Now you do have to outsource it to someone else. And, that's a whole nother conversation, which potentially we'll have you back on and we can pull that apart. However, before we move on to the weakness, one thing that I've really learned from being obsessed is applying that myself to reading the comments. And I know we're on this topic, and like I said, this goes to speak to the content creators, because there's an awful lot that you can learn. And there was an interesting video about hiring your haters, and I loved it. I was like, okay, where's this going? Now, let's just take a bodybuilder, for example, someone's like, haha, you got chicken legs. Now that hater, now there's going to be fair criticism and an unfair criticism, right? There's people who are just clearly clinically unwell, right? And there's problems going on at home. But there are some haters who still clinically ill on the verge, where they take time away from their life to come spread hate on your page where you're just spreading positivity. But actually, this person isn't scared of you. They don't respect you. They don't admire you. And they're far away from you to be like, your legs are small. They may just have a point. And now use that energy and go grow those legs. And now you might just make it onto that stage and win that medal. And you can say thank you to that hater who pointed out your legs were small. Now, of course, this is probably so disconnected from our viewers. But what I mean is, prime example, someone was like, since you left PCC, your engagement has flopped. And I was like, what? But then I was like, whoa, wait a second. Maybe there's a little bit more here. And there was. And it purely was because my content wasn't good. And I was like, okay, well, why isn't it good? Why am I not getting as much engagement? And it's subjective, but I thought there's something to learn here. And I used that. And like my next 2 posts that week were my best performing posts ever for, I don't know how long I've been on Twitter. Now, I didn't think of that hater constantly throughout the process,
Mhm.
but that one comment put me on a creative journey to figure out,
Mm.
wow, I've really taken my foot off the gas since leaving PCC. And actually, my content has fallen, and I've got to do something different here. So, have you found, one, how do you deal with haters? And two, have you found a positive outcome from a hater?
I'm going to spin the second part of that question in a second, but how do I deal with haters? I do find that actually quite hard. Something that I've definitely found difficult through my content creation journey, because I never really understood it, because I've only ever tried to be honest and tell the truth. And I don't, like, back really early on, like I took a couple sponsors and one wasn't good, when I had like 8,000 followers. And since then, like I've not taken any sponsors for like the last, I don't know, like 9 months to a year. Just because, like, I break it down and just say that the only reason I even make content is because I want to educate people. And so when anything takes away from that, it's really hard. But like I've talked to you off camera about this on a personal level, is that hurts cash flow, because I spend all my time doing this, especially like making content. So like I am looking now to find that balance but it has to be like to bring cash flow in, and at the same time still educate in the same way that I was before. And morally, for me, it has to be perfect. So that's where I'm at the minute. And then in regards to the second part of that question, so how do I deal with haters? Honestly, if I'm having a bad day, I just block them. And if I'm not having a bad day, if they recur, like if they're just like saying the same hate, and if it depends how. Okay, so in the description you gave, small legs and a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Cool. That's kind of like specific, but also could be construed as something like a weakness. But if it's just blind hate, like if people are just saying, like, for example, XRP, for example, if they just say, oh, okay, like
Arrogance, pure arrogance.
Yeah, if it's a centralized like crap coin, I don't know if we can curse on it. If it's centralized
Bitcoin.
Yeah, if it's a centralized shit coin and then they just put that on like every post, it's just like you're just gonna get blocked. Actually, for a bit, like I'll leave it because I get the extra engagement. But then after that, I'm just like, I don't want to see that every time. So you're just gonna get blocked.
But can I jump in if that's okay? I would look at that and I would say, okay, yeah, block, because I do. I don't reply to a single one of them because that's ultimately what they look for. I block, and now you're not getting access to what I'm doing anymore. Go elsewhere. But now here's a video and content piece. Is XRP a centralized shitcoin?
True.
Thank you, hater. Because now, thanks to you, I've got content to now speak to the masses about. But please continue. That's how I would spin it.
No, that's definitely like, and I think subconsciously we probably do that. Like, if we see a recurring comment about something, I like think, oh, okay, well, either they don't understand it, or like it's going to get views on both sides of the spectrum. So I'm going to put the post out there. And then the second part, I can't remember exactly what you were saying, but I was going to say something like, I'm in a transition. Instead of like, what do they bring to me? Like, how do I like change my content to make my content better? I think I'm in a transition anyway and this is going to lead into your second question that I think you're going to ask me in a second, but I'm in a transition anyway of trying to improve my content in a way of making it different to have more engagement, because TikTok algorithms have changed. I haven't got the time to make 3 to 5 TikToks a day anymore. I want to be making other content, and I spend a lot more time writing long form content, including the newsletter, but also like threads on Twitter that I wasn't spending time on before. So like literally my time is getting shorter for video production. So I'm in a transition period as well with my content. So
nice.
Yeah.
And when those haters come, if there's a chance to educate them, I will on your behalf. If there's not, I'll be like, hey, go ahead and block them.
It's not a centralized shitcoin.
Just for the record. Watch this clip get cut up and then all the hate pour in here. Thanks a lot, bro.
Yeah, you just cut my clip up saying, yeah, just take it. It's not out, and it's just like me saying it's a centralized shitcoin.
Ruin. On potentially a career-saving moment, this is a chance for you to be transparent. And I know we're about to hit our imaginary cap of 30 minutes. Are you good for another 10 minutes?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, lovely. So we've covered, weaknesses within your strength and how obsession has, of course, brought you to where you are today and will continue much further into the future. But what would you say is the biggest thing holding you back right now?
As I said, to start with, like my answer was going to be strange. I also think that my biggest weakness is my biggest strength. And that is obsession. And that is because on a personal, it depends how you want to define life and what you want from life. But on a personal level, it's meant that I've missed out or not followed a conventional life path, depending on what you guys or anyone thinks is conventional or what you want out of life. But it means that, like, I'm 29, so I'm not super young. And for the last 3 years, I literally haven't left my bedroom really. I do socialize a little bit, but like it's never free-minded socializing. I'm always thinking about other things. Like I haven't really, like, relationships as in like with partners have suffered, relationships even with family have suffered. And like the main reason I even do this is my first goal is to retire like friends and family. So that's where it's hard, because I'm looking into the future and I know what is coming for me, especially because I've worked so hard for this. And I know with what I've learned, what I can achieve going forwards. But you kind of sacrificing what I actually want, like for people I love, and the time I want to be able to spend time with them. I want to be able to do things with them and for them. And I kind of sacrifice being able to spend that time now for then hopefully being able to look after them like better in the future. So that's a really hard psychological battle to like deal with. But yeah, obsession, it's made me miss out in terms of what a lot of people do on a day-to-day on 3 years of life, but it's also provided me the opportunity to do more extraordinary things. So that's what I'd say is my super weakness. And as an investor, it also isn't great, because what, like we talked about when we were talking about social media and emotion, if you're obsessed with an investment, it's not even talking about a specific investment, but with investments in general, it takes away from everything. Like it's hard to, without experience, I don't think you can do this without experience. You can't really take a step back and detach yourself from stuff that like your income means like stuff to you. Like it's valuable to you, because I see money as essentially like time tokens. So if I'm giving my life savings away into an investment or invest in that, I'm investing my time. Like if that money goes to zero, my time has been burnt and I have to reinvest that time again. So it's a really deep thing to be able to take a step away from, okay, well, I've got all these time tokens that I've earned doing things that didn't earn me a lot of money or didn't earn me a lot of time. So it might have taken me like 2-3 years to save up that pot of time or value. I've invested that to be able to step back from that with no emotion and it not affect my day-to-day life. It's super tough. And like I've only learned that through crypto because it's so volatile, but also because I was lucky enough to be in the 2017 run where it was obviously volatile then. I made some money, lost some money, made some money, probably came out just over evens. But what I learned then, even though the amount I had in the market was way less, it was still relative in value of time again to what my net worth is now. And it did teach me that lesson. And then as soon as I started to get back into crypto again, I obviously had more financial knowledge, but it's been a lot easier because my net worth has never dipped below my initial starting point. It's like, obviously, or I'd like to, don't want to say obviously, I don't want to be like that, but it is much higher now than where I started.
Yeah.
So I've never had to deal with a drawdown that's like, I mean, anywhere even near what my original portfolio was, but that's maybe through obsession as well. So, but it doesn't mean that like when you have a huge day of drawdown that you're not really upset about it. And I don't want to go into figures, but if you go say like, if you have like a 10, 15, 20%, 30% drawdown, like you shouldn't really have 30% drawdown because you're probably too like, stuck into one asset if you're having that, because you should maybe have some, be a bit more diverse. But if you have those days, which I've had because I take the extra risk and I talk about that, then it's not easy, because you think, okay, well that was maybe 10 years that I've just lost today. So and then again it goes to that family thing where it's like I probably could literally sit here and be like way more passive with my investments, be fine for myself for probably forever, like with the knowledge that I've got now, if I just sat with my portfolio. But I don't want to do that. I like want to help my family, I want to help my friends, and I want to change the world. So if I have the personal ability to be able to do that, I want to get there. And then again, then it's back to the emotional loop and the obsession of like, you're onto yourself again. If you lose a trade, then it's the time that you've lost, and then over and over and over in that same like progressive or regressive loop, depending on how it's going, I guess.
Wow. If what I do, I'm starting to put together like a little journal, and if I ever publish it privately, publicly, the lessons that you just spoke of, it will be a small journal, in my opinion, because when you really think about the principles of investing, common sense isn't common practice. But some of the things you just said there will be up there with probably the first 10 things I'll recommend. And the best way I've understood it before you spoke just now about living in that dichotomy of trying to enjoy now with your family, because I'm a stoic. I think about death a lot. Knowing that you could die today, but put money aside for a future with your family in 5-10 years, which you might not ever get to live to see. That's hard. It's somewhere in the middle you need to be. And the best quote I've heard, which sums up what you said at the beginning, which was, spend 10 years doing the things you don't want to do, so you can spend 60 years, 50 years doing the things you truly love. But that quote, as powerful as it is, still comes back to, you could die right now and you'll never get to see those 60 beautiful years. So what can we do today? E.g., I've told a couple of my friends how to access my crypto and, in a sense, become my will. So they can sell and distribute 10% to my mum, 20% to my fiance. Actually, those aren't the true ratios. Don't worry, mum.
Yeah, don't listen, mum.
But that is how I am at peace today, being obsessed like you are. And I don't know if that helps you, bro. Have you, if you don't mind sharing publicly, have you thought about life after you and what will happen to your assets?
Yeah, definitely. Had the same strategy. I have, since I've been involved in crypto, like my dad sold his company, so he understands crypto a little bit. Like we've got a bit closer because we can speak a similar language now, at least in terms of finance a little bit. So he has access to it, and so does one of my best friends as well.
Okay.
So yeah, they're gonna distribute it. But even then, like, I would be so frustrated because they won't have the same cash out plan and reinvestment models and stuff that I would have. So, but yeah, like, but one of the things I did want to touch on, I know, and I don't want it to be like a morbid thing. It's like that you were just saying is, live like 10 years now so you can have 50 years in the future. Is the problem with that saying for me personally is like who I want to spend those 50 years with after their 10 years now is probably a big 10 years in their life. Like for my mum, for example, someone who's done a lot for me, and that you want to give back a lot to them, that 10 years time for them, they might not have another 10 years left, or even if they have 10 years left now, as you were saying. And like for me, like we're talking about, it's not so important, because basically the main thing that I've said to my friends is, if anything happens to me, I'm lucky enough that my parents are financially stable, but not necessarily free. But like, I'd have enough to like look after my sister for life, and that's the most important part. But it's not enough that it's not enough for me to do it now, but it is enough for if I wasn't here. So that's the hard part. It's like you want to make that money to look after those people, but you also want to spend that time with those people.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part about even saving for if you're super successful in 10 years time. Like, that's what one thing I've actually even been considering why I've even moved to Bali is because if I'm super successful in 10 years time but super lonely, like with no personal connections, like as long as I do think that as long as I've changed people's lives like online, which I know that I have been doing it anyway, like it is definitely worth it. But on like in terms of like a personal sacrifice, it's a strange road to walk down. Like giving up personal relationships for the concept of earning value and time for yourself and other people.
You say it's strange. In our world, it's common practice. So it's strange when we go to IRL. See, I'm learning something today. In the real world, because we're doing something that the majority aren't doing, and what that can do is it can make them self-conscious, right? And I remember when I was doing athletics at a competitive level, when I used to tell people, oh, I'm going to this country to compete, the looks on some of my closest friends' faces, envy, greed, jealousy, whatever you want to call it, ultimately at the core of it, it made them question, what am I doing with my life? Because I was doing so good, it made their light dimmer. Now, that was never my intention. And I always suffered with that. And the way I dealt with it was I just wouldn't share it. But then I met people who are on my level and above. And they said to me, Jordan, you'll never be criticized by people above you. You'll only be criticized by people below you. And if those people below you can't fan your fire and not realize that their light gets smaller by cheering you on, you shouldn't be spending time with those people. And the cliche of, cutting friends off, that was just not me. However, now 25, my right page, I've realized that I don't have to verbally say to them, you are cut off, goodbye.
Yeah.
What's happened is I haven't messaged them or checked in on them for years, and surprise, surprise, they haven't done the same for me. And they haven't been invited to my stag do or future events at my house. And we move on our separate lives now, sadly.
Yeah. And that is a very difficult part of like starting to progress personally, financially, all these sorts of things. And if you like, one thing that my mum actually left me with before I left is like, just keep looking forwards, because if you start to look back, then it really does play on your mind. And that's one of the things that I do think back to myself a lot, because even being here, some of the friendships I thought were strong are less strong than I thought they were. So that is like a weird thing, but you have to, I also know that because I've been on a personal journey for, well, like up until 27, I wasn't really that sure of myself. And then after that, like I just started to do what I thought was right, not necessarily what I thought society thought was right. And since then, all my friendships have like changed. And I think that it's important to remember that anyone who's watching this is you just need to be yourself. And whether that is whatever that might be, work, personal, if you are yourself, you get the best out of any relationship. And that's something that I've really worked on. And it's not necessarily always easy because you're taught a certain way by society and schooling and all these sorts of things. And your previous experiences have molded you into being a certain way, and probably through events that have happened in your past, you've probably have like certain vulnerabilities that you don't want to expose. But if you actually are just yourself and do what you want to do, even though it might be difficult to start with, you will ultimately gain like a bigger reward from it, because you will have genuine relationships with people, but also you'll have a genuine relationship with yourself. And I think that's the best part. And it doesn't mean that it's easy as well. This is another thing. I have so much like on this topic that I want to talk about, but like,
we'll bring you back.
but that's the most important part. The last part of it is having the relationship with yourself. If you can look at yourself and say, I'm proud of you, or I'm happy with what you've achieved, or even if you do one thing that you're like, wow, like that was amazing. You influenced someone's life, you helped someone, or you helped yourself, you got over a fear, or you accomplished a goal that you've been wanting to accomplish for so long. That's, in my opinion, like what life's about, like in terms of personal development, at least.
Couldn't agree more. And I usually ask guests, what's one last thing you want people to remember? I'd say you did it just there. So I'm so glad your mum gave you that advice, and that advice lives through you, and I'm sure it will connect with one person. Last thing, how can people keep in touch with you?
Crypto Insight UK on every social media platform. Pretty active on Twitter, as I said. That's where I'm really spending most of my time at the minute. But if you're into YouTube and TikTok, YouTube would be a great sub, actually, because I'm nearly at 3,982. So get over there and drop me that sub.
I love that. And it goes without saying, buddy, we'll put the link down below. In fact, we'll make it the first link, and that's it. Maybe the only link. Look, it's always a pleasure. I'm so glad we connect more and more every time we speak. But if I can help you, you let me know. But until then, I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah, cheers, John. Sorry, I just felt like I rambled a lot. I think I'm tired from the weekend as well. Just done a lot of reflecting this last few days as well. So just been nice to take the foot off the gas.
It's beautiful. Brilliant, bud. Well, look, we'll speak to you soon. Hang around. And of course, now for the audience at home, if you've learned something today, which I'd be very, 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 very surprised if you haven't, if you've gotten this far, especially, please be sure to go show some love and support for Crypto Insights UK. As you can see, he is a young man, although he may say he's not young anymore. He's a young man from the UK who is doing some incredible things for not just his family, but your family as well. And I don't need to tell you that. You've seen that throughout this whole entire interview. So if you haven't learned anything new, well, you're going to have to come back next week. And if you have, we will see you next week on the Super Investor Show. Ciao for now.